And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Comanauts. Now, Comanauts, a game by Jerry Hawthorne and produced by Plaid Hat Games, is a game in which there is a famous scientist. His name is Dr. Martin Strobel. He's going to save the world, but a lab accident left him in a coma. Miniature black hole is formed. It's going to destroy Earth. He knows how to stop it. You have to get together with some other Comanauts, the name of the game, go into his mind, into his psyche, and fight his inner demons as to who and what they might be, and figure out the solution here. It's a cooperative adventure games. Now, a couple things here. First of all, this review is going to be a little different than my typical reviews. I apologize, but I just felt like this might be better if I'm basically just going to talk a lot about this game. This game is based on an earlier game that he did called Stuffed Fables, which was a cooperative game for kids. In Stuffed Fables, you were a group of stuffed animals fighting together against these demons or, evil creatures that were things that scared a little girl, and you worked together to stop her. It was a game for kids, not just for kids, though, like for kids and their parents. You worked together and did things. This game is a very similar system to that, not exactly the same. It's not a one-to-one thing. It's also a game I can't really show you a ton of because I don't really want to spoil how the game works or the stories that you'll find. But the game definitely evokes feelings in me. I'm not going to be the only person to review it on our channel. Eric Summer is going to be taking a look at it. But I just wanted to give you some of my thoughts about it. But before we do that, I'm going to show you a little bit of how the game works. Not a ton, but just kind of give a context of where I'm going with this. In this game, you're going to be going through his psyche, and you're going to be going through this book. So this is the Comanauts Adventure book, and it has an introduction, which, after the first game or so, you probably won't want to read that. But as the game progresses, it's going to tell you to turn to various pages. So I have one saved here. Like you might go to his past in Quantum Academy. And then there's like an introduction to it. And then you'll start in the classroom, and each player is going to be playing various avatars, and these are various people that you will be over the course of this. You'll have a standee that matches your avatar, and you're moving around on this board and doing various things. Different things are going to happen here that you'll read part of this. It might take you to another part, and again, you can see that this is like not an actual school. There's like floating blankets here and stuff because it is in a dream type setting here. And you might go to some pages, you might not, and then you might end up then traveling to another area. This is the Dusty Gulch. And you're doing all this because you're trying to beat one of these IDs. There are these negative things that you're going to be going through and fighting as time goes by. You're going to be going through to different areas, but you're trying to find this one ID, this one psyche. And so the game has kind of a neat concept where there's these numbered cards that might give you clues. You have a strange encounter, these things that will happen to help you figure out which one of these big bads you need to defeat, because there are multiples of them that are in the game that are going to show up, but each one may not be the specific one, and you're kind of jumping around from timeline to timeline trying to find the right things so that you can help stop this wormhole. Much of how the game works is going to be centered around attribute dice, as players are going to be pulling dice from a bag, and some dice will be negative and hurt the players and causing these IDs. You're looking for a prime ID, trying to figure out what the main thing that's the problem is, but other ones you're going to be using to fight with or to move or to do various things, to find equipment. There's really a lot of different things that are involved in this game, and your character could even be taken out and you have to switch to another avatar, or you might find some items that will help you as you go through this scenario. And again, I'm trying to be a little bit vague as I go through this, but you're trying to defeat these IDs and accomplish specific goals as you play through that. And other than that, I'm going to kind of let you figure out the rest of it on your own. I'm not going to show many more of the pieces. I kind of want to talk about my thoughts and feelings on the game, so let's get started with that. So let's start with the game mechanisms. This is kind of weird because I usually talk about theme first, but I want to talk about theme secondary. The game mechanisms to this are very similar to that of the last one, the Stuffed Fables game. And there are things that I like about it and dislike about it at the same time. So it almost comes as a net neutral for me. So in essence, this game is going to give you an RPG feel to it. And in fact, you can go through and play a campaign. There's actually, this isn't spoiling anything, but there's a little set of stickers here where you can kind of mark stuff so that the next time you go through, you don't necessarily fight the same stuff. And it has a storyline that you're going to be following. And when you play an RPG, a role-playing game, which is essentially, there's usually one person who is the dungeon master, the game master, and they're walking you through it. Here you're going through this book, and you're going to be walking through there and finding these IDs and these psyches. It's very psychological as you're going through this. And so there's not someone controlling it. It's the book that's controlling it. And because of that, there's a lot of scenarios here where I felt like we were being railroaded. They were like, do this, move here, go here. And we're like, well, we don't really have a lot of choice. We just have to do that. And because of that, sometimes the things you need to do, we needed to pull specific combinations of dice from the bag or roll well to accomplish a certain goal in a certain circumstance or have the right piece of equipment. And sometimes it just didn't happen. And I felt like the level of luck was a little higher than I would like, and the level of control was a little less than I would like. So as I'm coming through, I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to go here and find this out. Now, there's this aspect of the game where you're trying to figure out who this prime ID is, trying to figure out which of these different things you're fighting against fear and envy and gluttony or whatever, like these negative spirits. And that's kind of cool thematically. But as you go through, you're trying to figure out what these are. There's clue cards. Some of the clue cards are like, oh, that clue was useful. Other clue cards were kind of like, how was I supposed to figure it out from that? But you're trying to go. So the game is kind of weird because you could go through a couple of these different time periods as you jump through the book, or you need to go through a lot of them. And the more you go through, the lessens your chance of doing well in the game. The faster you can solve the problem, in instance, the better you are. And so, again, I just felt like the luck level with the what dice you pull from the bag, what you roll on those dice, when you pull them from the bag, that was kind of at odds then with the, you can do anything you want. You really can't do anything you want. You're in this one area and you need to get to this spot, so I got to run down this spot, and because of the way the board's made, we're funneled here. This thing shows up. We have to fight it. You know, it's not like, ooh, instead of fighting this thing, let's try to talk our way out of it. There's not a whole lot of that in this game. It's very much do this. And because of that, I don't think that each of these scenarios, like I showed you the class from the Quantum Academy and stuff, I don't feel like if you go back to that Quantum Academy that you're going to do it differently each time, which means I feel like the game is not infinitely replayable. It is replayable. You can just get in here and go through a bunch of these scenarios and jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and then play it again. But you might come across content that you've already seen. And I think the game is best played probably as a campaign where you go through all these things. And I think when you're done with the campaign, I think you also will then say, we're finished because we've completed this story. Now this is really interesting because I just reviewed a game a couple weeks ago, Gen 7, which is also from Plaid Hat Games, which also has a story which is this amazingly cool premise where you're on this ship and you're traveling and you're the 7th generation and it's cool. But the story itself wasn't that interesting. Gotta say, the story here is really good. I don't know if Jerry Hawthorne has written a story, but I always thought his stories in, especially Mice and Mystics, were really well done. I thought this story was pretty gripping to the point that I've read almost everything, even the stuff I didn't go through, because I was curious what would happen next. I mean, the idea of going in someone's head or in someone's psyche, I've actually seen a movie on this. This whole idea is cool, but I don't know, I thought it was well written. I mentioned that there was this randomness and there was there's a lot of what character are you, and what bad guy shows up, and what dice you pull, and it railroaded you through the story. But it was a good story, and that's what brought me back. I was kind of like, it was okay as a game, but the story here transcended the game. The story kind of went to a farther place than I was used to. The art is good. That helps with the story, right? It has this surreal quality because not only are you trying to actively, the world is falling apart, right? The outside world is falling apart, and they give you things in the story to kind of cement that home. Food rationing and all kinds of stuff is happening, and you got to stop that. But at the same time, when you go into his mind, then there's this weird psyche, like, okay, he was afraid to talk to this girl, or he had an argument with his mother, or whatever it is. And you look at these small moments in time that affected this story, and then you sit there and go, huh. And it makes you think, right? Like, I just had a moment with someone in my life today. How's that going to affect the future? I don't know, just kind of weird, right? I didn't think it was silly or dumb or trite. It just felt interesting. And the artwork kind of brings that home. I mean, if you just look here at this artwork, these are very different things. Like there's like a Pooh Bear type thing with a thing, and over here there's planes and war, and yet it comes together, I thought, in a fairly cohesive overall story, to the point where if you don't play through the campaign, you're kind of shorting yourself. You're not seeing all of it. I don't think this game is for everybody. It is, the component quality is high. I think the artwork's good. But there's a lot to get involved with. Some people are going to feel constrained by the game itself. And I'll say in my first game through, I definitely felt that way. I felt constrained, and I was kind of like, not sure I like this, because I want to kind of go around and do stuff. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm kind of along for the ride. Wasn't completely that way. I get to make decisions and do different things and choose. But I want to see what happens next. I want to turn the page and see what's gonna be the next new interesting thing. So I think it's best played as a campaign. You're going to want to get people together who are going to come. I mean, you can switch people out each time, and Bob wasn't able to make it, but Susan's here. And Susan come in, and you kind of catch her up on the details and stuff, and that's possible. But I feel like you have a broader experience. I think I'm done with it. Like, okay, now I know what happens. Put it aside. That was a great story. Maybe I'll come back to it in a few years or something. I could see that happening. But it's interesting. Plaid certainly is pushing the bounds of game creativity, and I think Comanauts does that. It's not stuffed fables for adults, and yet it is stuffed fables for adults. I think the stuffed fables system works better for kids because they don't realize that they're being constrained, and they have more, the freedom to do different things, and a little bit of freedom goes a long way. And I think that shackles of what I'm doing is going to bug adults a little bit more, but I think the story will hook you in and pull you beyond that to where you can go and find and just have unique adventures. Even though I said I sat and read a lot of the stuff in here, I don't think I saw everything. I'm kind of cool with that. I can come back later and see more. And I don't know that I love the game. I love the story. So it's good. It's not for everyone, but I know there's going to be people out there who are overjoyed at it. And the level of writing and story and detail like this, I like to see in more games. Those are my thoughts on Comanauts. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment approved.